This is Build Without Chaos. I'm Colleen Gepfert. One clear idea every episode for operators, founders, and marketers who build with intent. Today on Build Without Chaos, I'm joined by Jerry Colonna. Jerry is a CEO and co-founder of Reboot, an executive coach, author, and former venture capitalist who has spent years helping founders and executives navigate the pressure of leadership. What makes Jerry's perspective unique is that he doesn't start with the company. He starts with the human being leading it. Because while we often talk about scaling organizations, scaling teams, and scaling revenue, we spend far less time talking about what success, pressure, uncertainty, and ambition reveal about the people at the center of it all. And we explore what hypergrowth teaches us about ourselves, where organizational chaos really comes from, and why becoming a leader may start with becoming a better human. Jerry, welcome to Build Without Chaos. I'm excited you're here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great conversation. One thing that stood out as I was preparing for this conversation is that a lot of leadership advice focuses on becoming a better manager, a better executive, or even a better founder. And your work seems to start somewhere else. You talk about becoming a better human first, which I love. So what's interesting to me is that you've spent years working with leaders inside some of the most ambitious and high pressure environments imaginable. And yet the questions you explore aren't really business questions, they're human questions. So I'd really just love to start there. Why does becoming a better human matter so much to becoming a better leader?
Because leadership is often associated with power. And when we don't do what I would call the radical self-inquiry work of trying to become a better human, we hurt people. And we hurt ourselves, and we hurt those around us. And so from where I sit, it's a moral imperative to understand what's motivating you, why you behave the way you behave, before you discharge the responsibilities of power and authority.
Yeah. Can you dive into the radical inquiry that you just mentioned? What are your
Sure.
thoughts behind it?
So radical self-inquiry is a term I coined maybe about 20 years ago to try to describe what it was that I seek to induce in people, a kind of radical curiosity. So I often say radical self-inquiry is the process by which we strip away the masks so that there's no place left to hide. My question, a radical self-inquiry question, is why do you want to grow? What need is it fulfilling inside of you? And is that need conscious? Or is that need really rooted in some unconscious desire to prove somebody wrong in your past?
Yeah.
So more often than not, radical self-inquiry boils down to asking questions like, why? Not to challenge the assumption behind it, but to really induce the kind of curiosity that says, why did you choose this company? Why did you choose this job? Why did you choose this career? What need inside of you might be met by you being whatever title you're carrying?
Okay. So you've spent years working with founders and executives inside some of the highest growth companies in the world. Hypergrowth has been no stranger to you, that's for sure. What does building a company reveal about the people building it?
Let me answer that by turning to a question I often ask my clients.
Yeah.
And that is, if your children or other people that you love were to come to work for you and your company, how would you feel? If you hesitate, then what does that reveal about you? For example, a lot of people build a company because there is some, in Buddhism we'd say, a hungry ghost imagery A hungry ghost is a folklore character who eats and eats and eats and is never satiated.
Right.
So a lot of companies are founded by people who eat and eat and eat and are never satiated because they're feeding the wrong part of themselves. Why is your company the way it is? Why do you make the choices that you make?
So let's say someone's in this environment and they're leading the company, they're in a leadership role. Where do you even start with getting them to experience growth? Like, can it come from within? Because usually what I see is it comes from some external force or something happens in someone's life that amplifies the growth,
So when you say the growth, you mean the personal growth,
the personal
not
growth.
growth.
I do think that they're correlated. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And I think people tend to choose hypergrowth companies because it's fulfilling a need internally with them. But I'd like to start with the person itself. You're inside a company, it's not the best environment. You know something needs to change. You're in a leadership position, but can you really make that change happen?
Okay, you're asking two different but related questions.
Exactly.
The first question is really about the impetus for change.
Yeah.
What's compelling people, you said, to do this kind of growth, meaning the personal growth? And the second observation is really a question, which is, can people really change? Okay?
It's a $1 million question.
Well, my entire life is built around the assumption that people can change.
Yeah.
I fundamentally and wholeheartedly believe that people can change, even on our deathbed. This is a core teaching in Buddhism, that even if you spend your entire life in an unconscious, reactive state, and in the last minute you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I could have done it differently. Congratulations, you woke up. Okay? It's really important to assert this because a lot of people don't even try to be, to use the term, a better human because they feel, why should I bother? I'll never change. So, yes, people can change. And this then relates to the first question, which is, let's talk about it in terms of the hero's journey, right? The mythological experience, even Joseph Campbell made famous. There is a story, and it's been in our cultures for millennia, which is that everything is going fine until it doesn't, and things start to break. And it's at that moment that our hero or our heroine goes through this experience of realizing, excuse me, trigger warning, I'm about to curse, oh fuck, I got to change. And one of my favorite writers wrote a book about leadership called On Becoming a Leader, Warren Bennis. And Bennis says that every great leader faces this alchemical moment where they're in what he called the crucible. And if you remember what a crucible is, the alchemist would use a crucible, a container, and put lead into the crucible and heat it up and turn it into gold. So Bennis makes the observation that all leaders are faced with these crucible moments. And too many leaders turn the heat off just when it's about to turn into gold. Because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to experience the heartbreak of a business failing, of your leadership style being challenged, of you realizing you haven't a clue about what you're doing. It's really hard to turn that moment into a moment of self-reflection, radical self-inquiry, and growth.
I guess you either get energized by that moment or you just stay the status quo, is what I'm hearing from you. Me personally,
Uh,
I get energized.
I think people get both. I think that they get energized and they get terrified. And that's normal because it's scary. Now, you get energized. What energizes you? Why does it energize you?
I've never been someone to shy away from change.
How curious are you?
I'm very curious.
That's the
And
key.
that also may be why I have chosen a hypergrowth tech environment to work in. It's ever changing, right?
Ah,
I'm like, man, why didn't I just go work for the government or something that's so much more structured and you know what you're doing every single day? And there's a moment that I'm like, yeah, I could just go do that. But then I think, no, that's not me. There's something about me that really enjoys hypergrowth tech and disrupting what's going on out there to modernize it and evolve and grow as a company. And so for me, that matches my personality. I'm not going to tell you I think it's easy to change, and that's going to suck for a little bit, but it'll be better on the other side. That's how
well,
I look at it.
I think you've experienced enough of those moments to know that it will be better on the other side. Many
Yeah.
people have not yet experienced that, and they don't know the way you know that it will be better. Your story reminds me of something I often do with new clients. At some point in the process, I'll draw an arc on a piece of paper, just a plain little arc. And I call this the arc of dysfunction. And on the far left side of the arc, I write unhealthy and dysfunctional. And on the far right end of the arc, I write healthy, functional, and boring. And at the apex of the arc, I write healthy and dysfunctional. And people smile just the way you're smiling because they recognize it. Because the dysfunction gets manifested in constant change, constant challenging, constant growth, and it's
Mhm.
healthy. On the far left side, the unhealthy is when we are toxic, when we are fighting, when we're lost, when we're anxious, when we're letting fear drive everything. And at the top, at that apex point, we're letting the energy of possibility drive things. It can still feel dysfunctional,
Yeah.
but it ain't boring.
So how do you get people that are on one side of the arc to the other side of the arc?
Well, we don't want the people who are on the healthy, functional, boring side, they can go work at the post office. I'm kidding.
They're
Well,
probably happy.
I would say Google, before the disruption that is AI, got to that place. I would say the real challenge, Colleen, is how do you take that apex moment and then extend it as long as possible? How do you take that so that there's this constant sense of energy and vibrancy? And you named it already. You have to be accepting of uncertainty. You have to be accepting of change. You have to see that as an opportunity for your own personal growth. Yeah, and you're kind of living on the edge all the time, aren't you? Not really sure.
Yeah.
The reason I bring this up with clients is because they are often coming into coaching when they're at the lower end, the left end of that arc. And in that zone, they see themselves as broken, bad leaders, miserable. And by normalizing it and talking about it as a common phenomena, we start to disrupt the sense that I'm worthless because my company is struggling. That's that over-identification that can really drive us crazy.
So from your perspective, where does chaos actually come from? And how much organizational chaos is really human chaos?
All organizational chaos is human chaos. What do you mean?
I guess how much is it really affecting the human? In the example that you just gave, right? Someone's coming to you and they've realized they're really toxic. They're a toxic leader. Like, what's their example they're giving you
Well, there's
to kind
chaos and then there's
of show?
toxic leadership. They're related, and one may feed
Yeah,
the other, but they're not the same, right?
right.
And you can barely keep up with demand. There's a chaos that can go along with that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's high energy, like,
Let's call it structured chaos.
or
Yeah,
sure. But
yeah,
notice the reach. The reach is for the word structure. The reach is for the word kind of like the imagery I would have is that you're riding at the top of the surfing wave. You're
right,
surfing and everything's okay. You could wipe out at any second, but you got it, right?
right.
And you can have toxic leadership in those circumstances, and you can have toxic leadership in when everything is boring. You can have toxic leadership, in all sorts of experiences. The connecting point, I think, that you're sensing is when I, as someone who holds power in an organization, have this internalized view of what I'm supposed to be, and I emulate, say, toxic behaviors. Oh, my boss was an asshole, so I'm going to be an asshole. Masking whatever it is that's really driving me. I'm afraid of failing. Then you get this not only bad behavior management or leadership, you get this distrusting, untrustworthy leadership where it just feels awful. Then when you layer in the chaos that can come from massive growth, hypergrowth, you get this really poisonous stew for people.
For me, I find structured chaos exciting, right? Like, we've got a product, it's shipping at record levels. I'm a part of that. That's exciting. Now, the toxic leadership is not exciting. And I remember someone saying to me outside the organization, if you don't leave, you're going to start to absorb that toxicity and be trained that way yourself as a leader. It's better to leave that environment and go find something that is more aligned to who you want to be. And my question to you is, do you think that's true?
No, I think we have a choice. I think
Do you think you can be successful as a non-toxic leader in a toxic environment?
it's hard,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's impossible. It means, what does it mean to be a better human?
Yeah.
It means I lead with integrity. It means my inner sense of values and my outer actions align. Now, I may not be able to act in that way, but I
Yeah.
don't have to absorb that as the way to be.
Don't you think it eats at your spirit eventually?
Of course, it's demoralizing,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I have to become that.
I think it's survival mode. You have to somehow adapt to it in order to execute.
Or do you have to, let me speak like a coach for a moment.
Sure.
What I heard you say is you somehow have to choose to be like them in order to survive being with them.
Yeah.
What was the verb? You have to choose to be like them. Now, let me acknowledge that
Yeah.
statement has a shit ton of privilege built into it,
Yeah.
because not everybody has the choice. We have to work, we have to earn money, we have to earn bread, but how you respond in those environments We don't have to emulate that behavior. We don't have to withstand the evil. We don't necessarily have to become evil ourselves. But I say it as if it's easy. It's not easy.
And I guess my way of thinking about that is if you can't impact that environment with non-toxic leadership traits, it's time to leave the environment.
I'll tell you a story. When I was in my early 20s, I was a managing editor. I had an employee who was going through a really, really rough time. He was going through a divorce, and he was entitled to 2 weeks vacation, and he needed an extra 2 weeks. So I gave him the extra 2 weeks. The head of HR came to my office and said, "What are you doing? How dare you do this?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he needed time. And she said, "What are you trying to do? Make this the best place in the company to work for?" I said, "Sounds like it's a great
Is that the most horrible thing?
Then I'm going to have a problem with all the other magazines." And I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's my problem.
Yeah. So what she was saying to you, conform to how the environment is here, or it's not going to work. And I don't know what that means. It's not going to work.
Right. Fortunately, I had enough power to say, "Yeah, no, thanks."
Yeah.
But there is that kind of mindset that says, what do you want to do? Create the best division in the company? Yeah. I think that's a worthwhile goal. What if the non-toxic leader infects the culture in a positive way? What if if we have the power and privilege, what if we start to model the kind of company that we would like to work for?
Do you actually say this?
All
I'm waiting
the
on
time.
bated breath.
Yeah.
And what was her reaction?
Oh, I didn't say it to her. I mean, I say this all the
Right.
time to my clients.
Yeah.
What if the goal was to create a company that you would like to work for? I mean, it sounds obvious, but when you lift it up, it's like, oh, that means I get to decide what the culture is. I get to decide working hard without causing pain and suffering.
You've seen an individual and a company be successful at this.
Absolutely.
Maybe in your coaching.
I've been doing this for 26 years.
You've seen someone come to you and they're currently in a toxic work environment and they want to become non-toxic themselves, and they positively infect their environment currently in their role and are able to make that change happen.
Less frequently than I see the most senior leader become a better human and therefore positively impact the entire organization.
I've seen it. And when you say become a better human, it's really about doing that internal reflection for your own personal growth.
Correct.
So people are coming to you, they see something in their environment that they've identified doesn't work for them, and they're labeling it as toxic. So they're coming to you to better understand how they can move through that, understand how to be better, and do the internal work, and then project it back out into their environment and affect change positively in their external environment.
So the question I'm most famous for, if you do any Google searching on me, aside from making people cry, the question that I'm famous for is, how have I been complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want? How have I been complicit? Not responsible. The whole point of radical self-inquiry is to use curiosity to look at the question, how have I As I often say, the word complicit reminds me of the word accomplice, which reminds me of the driver of the getaway car, not the guy sticking up the bank teller at the bank robbery. How has my fear of not fitting in, right? I could have responded to that head of HR saying, oh no, I'm not conforming to the rules. Well, sometimes the rules are wrong. Sometimes the rules go against our stated values. And so by me standing up and speaking up for justice and integrity, that's me working in a way that is in integrity with my values. When we see a colleague make a boneheaded racist comment to another colleague, do we say something? When we see misogyny on parade, as it happens again and again and again, do we say nothing? Or do we speak up? Do we say, hey, those aren't our values. What are you doing?
I get it. I'm from New York.
Okay.
We're speaking the same language.
So I was like, cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
If we do not speak up, then who will? And again, I recognize white, straight, cisgendered male. I got a lot of power and privilege.
Yeah.
With that power and privilege comes great responsibility. Speak up. I can be complicit in the toxic environment, not because I've done the toxic behavior, but because I don't do anything about the toxic behavior.
So there'll be some people who say to you, Jerry, what's the point? I'm getting a paycheck. I have got a job. I've got benefits. I've got a family to take care of. Why speak up? Why rock the boat?
My first book is called Reboot. My second book is called Reunion. Okay. In Reboot, I explore that question in depth. How have I been complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want? In my second book, I expand the question to how have I been complicit in and benefited from a world I say I don't want to see? And there's an animating question in that book, or an animating exhortation, which is, I want to be the ancestor that my descendants deserve. I have 2 granddaughters now. Nora, the youngest, is 4 weeks old. Mallory is 7 months old. What am I going to do? Look them in the eye 20 years from now and say I did nothing? I'm sorry, that's bullshit. The world is a kind of mess. What is my moral responsibility, even if I fail? Remember before I was talking about people who give up on changing because they fundamentally don't believe change is possible?
Yeah.
Same thing with happens to the world. Why should I bother changing the world? Why should I bother trying to change the world? And for that, I turn to my friend Parker Palmer. Parker's 87, I think 87. And he's a Quaker writer, and he's my core inspiration. He's been writing for 50 years. And he has an image I'll give to you. It's called the tragic gap. And the gap is between the world that we'd like to see and the world as it is. And the gap between is a tragedy. The danger there is that we would become irrelevantly idealistic. But there's an equally corrosive danger, which is on the other side, which is the world can't change, so why should I bother? And that kind of cynicism hurts everybody. The challenge is to stay right in the middle. To try, even though you'll probably fail.
So, what's the first step for somebody?
The
But
first,
what
first,
is the first?
the first step is, the Oracle at Delphi said it, know thyself. All of this stems from inside. You asked before about the chaos in an organizational. Is it organizational chaos? It's like, of course it's people. It's always people. It
So I
always
want to bring
begins
it
with
back.
us.
So a theme in tech at some of these great tech companies, a lot of them that I see, is that people's identities are very fused with the company. I live in San Francisco. I walk around, I see the swag, I see the backpacks. It's everywhere. So how do you keep your identity and your moral compass in check when you're so fused with a company identity?
The problem is when we give over a sense of self-worth and self-esteem to an accomplishment of a goal. When we went to school only for the grades so that we can make mommy and daddy happy. When we make career choices based not on who we really are, but on what is expected of us. See, all of the attributes of what you're identifying, they manifest in various ways, in various little choices that we make. And so that fusing, that merging of identity isn't just that I'm wearing the swag. It's that I don't know who I am independent of the story I carry about who I am supposed to be. We can lose ourselves in a job. We can lose ourselves in a role. We can lose ourselves in a relationship. We can lose ourselves in the pursuit of money, power, status. The common denominator problem is losing oneself.
Abandoning yourself, as I think they call it in therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the challenge I have with that phrase is that it presumes that one knows who one is before even the abandon. I have clients who are entering middle life and they're like, I don't even know how to choose what I want to be. It's because you've never practiced the muscle of answering the question, what do I want?
Yeah.
How do I want to be?
I have a friend who left a very toxic work environment recently. She was let go. And I said to her, you hated it there. It was so toxic. Every week I talked to you, you were miserable. And I said to her, I'm like, you have made this toxic environment and this company your identity, which is why you're down in the dumps about it. If you saw it for really what it is, you'd be thrilled. You've got a severance package.
She may also be afraid, right?
True.
We often stay in abusive situations because we're so terrified of not being in the abusive situation.
So there's a craze right now that's going around. It's called 996. You work from 9 to 9, 6 days a week, and it's expected. People are doing it. Your boss is doing it. Your subordinates are doing it. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not down with that. I'm not working 996. What's your advice to people if they're in a situation like that? How do you see what's right for yourself in that moment and speak up for yourself and not abandon yourself, and also not disappoint your boss or get in trouble with HR?
Well, you've created these constraints and these conditions that reveal belief systems.
Yeah.
Right? In your hypothetical scenario, the person already knows that this is not the right work environment for them. And the presumption is they're somehow supposed to fit who they are into that work environment. Now, again, I may not have a choice,
Right.
but to not acknowledge that that for a whole bunch of reasons there may be a job that's available to me, but I'm choosing not to take that job. It might mean less money. And let's talk about what the driver is behind 996. There is a misbegotten belief system that is going to increase productivity, which is going to increase valuation, which is going to make my stock worth something.
Yeah.
Okay, I was previously an investor. I know this game. Somehow a $10 billion company is going to be worth $30 billion, and my options, which are priced at a $10 billion valuation, are going to somehow be worth 3 times that. When this whole fucking bubble that we're living through is just as likely to crash and burn or burst, to keep the metaphor straight, than it is for this company's $10 billion valuation to triple. I don't have a problem with somebody choosing to work 996, but I also take 4-hour breaks in the middle of a Tuesday because I want to go for a hike. And nobody's driving it except me, because I love what I do. And I'm energized by what I do. I am not depleted by what I do. So if you want to work 996 because it energizes you, because it makes you feel good, because it creates a little bit of chaos, but the chaos is controlled, mazel tov. Be careful, watch yourself, make sure you eat, hydrate, and take care of yourself. And oh, by the way, you better have a partner who understands what's going on.
Yeah.
But don't kid yourself. Don't lie to yourself about what your motivations are. This is why that self-reflection is so important. Why do you want to do that?
There's some people who like to do it. There's some people who enjoy the chaos.
There's a story of an ancient potter, okay, who spends his entire life trying to perfect the most exquisite glaze imaginable. And at the end of his life, deciding that his meaningful life is over, he walks into the kiln and disappears into the fire. The next day, the potter's assistants open up the kiln, take out the pots, and they're covered with the most exquisite glaze imaginable. And that's the end of the story. Now, I always refer to the story of the potter as a paradox. It's a painful story, because the potter finally realized his life's ambition, the most exquisite glaze imaginable. But to realize that ambition, he had to give himself up. I only care if you walk into the kiln imagining that you're running away from mom and dad's fears, or imagining that you're living your life for some other reason. But if you go into that kiln and you know that it's so important that you perfect and create that exquisite glaze, then have a great time. But don't expect everybody else in your life to go along with that. You see why it's a really important teaching story?
Oh, yeah. For some people, there's more to life than walking into the kiln.
Amen. And it's only through radical self-inquiry that you can answer the question, is that true for you?
Right.
Not, is it true for everybody else walking down, I don't know, Montgomery Street in San Francisco? That's irrelevant. What's true for them?
Right.
The only thing that's relevant is what's true for you. Then you're living your life, not somebody else's life, or not somebody's expectation of what your life should be.
So it's identifying what you need in your life to be happy, and communicating that to the company.
Now, to be clear, many of us have dual motivations. I would like to be part of a rocket ship startup that's working 996, and I would love to have that. And I would also like to have my weekends. You have to be honest with yourself. And you're right. The time to be honest is before you take the job, if possible.
If possible. Sometimes you want to get in there because the innovation is so great. You think you can do it. And then after about 6 weeks, you realize maybe this wasn't the best decision.
That's right.
And now how do you pivot out of that?
Well, I don't think you should pivot until you know exactly who you are and what you want. See, we keep coming back to that inner reflection.
Coming back to doing the work, Jerry.
Do the work with a capital T and a capital W. The work. No one gets away with not doing the work.
Well, you could technically.
Sure.
Right?
Not if you want to be happy.
But yeah, those people aren't happy. Interesting. Okay. Well, you spent years helping leaders understand themselves. I guess, is there anything you had to unlearn about yourself?
Oh, sure. All of it. I mean, this importance of detaching my sense of self-worth from work, that was my lesson in my 30s. Like everything that I really share, I teach, is because I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
I know the seduction. Power, money, status, approbation of the world. There's in the closing part of my first book, Reboot, I talk about feeling like the gingerbread man, where every day someone's taking a little piece of me and I'm giving away pieces of me and giving away pieces of me until finally there's nothing left. And my realization was that I was the one who was giving away the pieces. You called it abandonment of self. But really what we're talking about is our own complicity in the conditions that we tell ourselves over and over again. I don't want to work like that. But it turns out that I'm working just the way my father did. And I swore I'd never be like him. The good news is this is a kind of universal experience. The bad news is it never ends.
It never ends.
Growth never ends.
Yeah.
Just like breathing doesn't end. It's who we are.
And what would you say to people if they wanted to know how you could get through growth periods in, I don't know, being happier doing it rather than seeing it so heavy?
You mean personal growth periods?
Yeah.
There's a very familiar saying amongst the Buddhist teachers. Whenever you present a Buddhist teacher with a challenging situation, they will nod and say, opportunity to practice. If you can see all of those challenging moments in life as an opportunity to practice, there's some growth in there.
It's not fun.
No. But as I said before, that's why most people choose not to grow, because it's not fun.
Yeah. I think it's easier too if you have other people you can talk to that are on the other side of growth.
Yeah.
Who can help hold your hand, metaphorically speaking, while you walk the bridge of growth.
I think of myself as an elder. I often will say to people, don't worry, come on over. It's okay. You can get through it. I promise you, you'll survive. Because I feel like that's a way to pay back the elders who did the same thing for me 20, 30 years ago.
It's hope.
And they've survived.
And they've survived.
You will too.
What does actually becoming a better human mean to you now?
It means really accepting my foibles, my strengths, the way, and understanding that this experience of wanting to be better is a lifelong process. And it's always going to bring up stuff. It's going to bring up the insecurities. It's going to bring up the limiting beliefs. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's what growth really feels like.
It's the uncomfortable parts.
Yeah, it's all right. They won't bite you. They're just uncomfortable.
Anything else you want to add? I know you've got 2 books. I'm definitely going to purchase them after this call. I think this has been a great conversation.
Oh, I'm glad. I've enjoyed it. The one thing I would say, taking that elder stance again, is don't forget to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
We're all kind of a mess. We'll find our way through.
Kind to ourselves, and also I try really hard to be kind to other people.
Amen.
Like a self-reflective place.
That's right.
Instead of judging them myself.
That's right.
You know?
Just be kind to each other.
In the world of today, I think that's
It's revolutionary.
It's revolutionary. It's a huge feat. But you know what? If we don't start talking about it, it won't happen.
That's right.
Jerry, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Without Chaos. If today's episode resonated, subscribe and share it with someone else who's building without chaos.